Let's talk about Spy Hunter for the NES, a game that takes the thrilling concept of high-speed vehicular combat and mixes it with a touch of espionage. If you've ever fantasized about being a secret agent behind the wheel of a gadget-filled supercar, this game probably caught your attention back in the day. But how well does it hold up now? And more importantly, does the NES version do justice to its arcade roots? Stick around as we dive into the history, gameplay, and overall experience of this classic. Let's rewind the clock to 1983. That's when Spy Hunter first hit arcades developed by Bally Midway. It was a smash hit, combining high-speed vehicular action with the thrill of espionage. You weren't just driving a car, you were piloting the high-tech Interceptor, outfitted with machine guns, oil slicks, and smoke screens. All tools to help you take down enemy vehicles while avoiding civilian casualties. The arcade version's iconic Peter gun theme and unique steering wheel controls were part of its charm. But how do you take something so tailored for the arcade and adapt it for the NES? Well, the port hit shelves in 1987 and it brought some of that arcade flair, but with a few noticeable trade-offs. Let's get into the gameplay. Spy Hunter on the NES is a vertically scrolling action game where your goal is to survive and rack up points by destroying enemy vehicles. Sounds simple enough, right? Well, not quite. The game throws a lot at you. You've got enemy cars trying to ram you off the road, helicopters dropping bombs, and even boats to deal with when the road shifts to waterways. On paper, it's an adrenaline-pumping thrill ride, and when it works, it's a lot of fun. The positives? Let's start with the gadgets. Few things in 8-bit gaming are as satisfying as taking out an enemy car with a well-timed oil slick, or watching a pursuing vehicle spin out from a smokescreen. The game's pacing is relentless, and that can be a good thing if you're looking for a challenge. It keeps you on edge, constantly reacting to new threats. There's also something inherently cool about the premise. Being a spy in a tricked-out car is the kind of fantasy that never gets old. But Spy Hunter isn't all smooth roads. The first major hurdle is the difficulty. This game is tough, and I don't mean a fun challenge tough. I mean, you're going to lose repeatedly and you'd better learn to like it. Tough. The controls, while serviceable, feel stiff compared to the arcade version. Precision steering is key, but it's hard to pull off when the game feels like it's fighting you. Then there's the lack of any real progression or story. It's essentially an endless loop of driving, shooting, and surviving. That's not necessarily a bad thing, but it does limit the game's appeal for players looking for more depth. Another issue is the visuals. By NES standards, Spy Hunter isn't exactly a stunner. The sprites are functional but lack the flair of the arcade original. The environments are repetitive, and while the game does throw in water sections to mix things up, it's not enough to keep things feeling fresh for long. And let's not forget the music, or rather the lack of it. The NES version doesn't include the iconic Peter gun theme, which was such a huge part of the arcade game's identity. Instead, we're left with fairly generic 8-bit tunes that don't leave much of an impression. So, where does that leave us? Spy Hunter on the NES is a mixed bag. On one hand, it's a solid attempt at bringing a beloved arcade classic to a home console. The core gameplay is intact, and the gadgets are just as fun as ever. On the other hand, it's hampered by stiff controls, brutal difficulty, and a lack of the polish that made the arcade version so memorable. It's a game that's worth checking out for its historical significance and for those who love a good challenge. But if you're expecting an experience that lives up to the arcade original, you might walk away disappointed. In conclusion, Spy Hunter for the NES is like an old spy movie. It's a little rough around the edges, but if you can appreciate it for what it is, there's some fun to be had. Just be prepared to grit your teeth and deal with some frustration along the way. Whether you're revisiting it for nostalgia or experiencing it for the first time, it's a ride that's worth taking at least once. Just don't expect a smooth journey. Thanks for sticking around. If you enjoyed this review, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe for more deep dives into retro gaming classics. Let me know in the comments, did you play Spy Hunter back in the day? Or is there another NES game you'd like me to review? Until next time, keep gaming and keep having fun. See you in the next video.